Hello, Melissa Crook here from the Feel Podcast. Welcome back to this episode today as we bring you from people pleasing to personal power. Lisa McCourt on joy, healing, and LGBTQ plus advocacy. The ways to engage with today's Feel Podcast episode are as follows. Next time someone asks you to do something, think about if you're being authentically yourself with them or if you're just doing it to please others. Think about if this action aligns with your own values before automatically agreeing to it. Great ways to engage here and really sit with and think about as you listen today to our really insightful and authentic and empathetic episode with our friend Lisa McCourt. Thanks so much for being with us. Hello, Feel Podcast audience. Welcome back this week. This is going to be really good. And I say that confidently up front because today's guest is so aligned with the work that we do here in her own work and also how she shows up in the world as an advocate. And this is going to make a lot more sense as we go along. But Lisa McCourt is here with me today. Lisa reached out to me via our contact form, via email, a few months back and presented herself and ways we could collaborate. I'm going to get to do some work with her as well. And we met and I knew instantly that she was going to be the perfect guest for us today. And so much good content coming your way. Sit down, get your notepad ready. Also know all of her resources are going to be available on our website at embracinglayers.com on the resources page. When this episode drops, you're going to want to follow her. You're going to want to know who she is. But Lisa describes herself as a mama bear, a forever learner of new things, a collaborator, and she is dedicated to making the world better. And she truly is. She truly lives her life in alignment with her values and what she was called to do. Lisa McCourt, welcome to the Feel Podcast.
I'm so happy to be with you, Melissa. Thank you.
I am so happy to be with you too. It's so good to see your face again. We had such a great, sometimes you just connect with people, and Lisa and I had that connection, and I'm so excited to share you with our listeners today. All right, let's get right into it. How to prioritize self-care in your life and what that looks like for you. When you get on your website, the first word you see is joy. And it's like, oh, I could use some of that right now. But that doesn't just happen. It takes work and a framework and a mindset and mindfulness and to tend to cultivating that joy. So I have to believe that self-care and prioritizing that has to have a place in your life somewhere.
100%. Yeah, you're so right about that. And for me, it's really nothing too extravagant or tricky. I absolutely require a good amount of alone time and silence. For me, silence is self-care. Alone time is self-care. Sometimes that's really hard to carve out in the calendar, but I know that's how I restore, replenish. When I am driving alone in my car or walking, I never play music or podcasts because for me, that's just keeping my brain busy the way it is the rest of the time. I need that absolute silence. So that would be the first way. But then on the other side of that, I also prioritize quality time with my closest loved ones, with my husband, my daughters, my closest friends. I always prefer that to a big party scene or anything, too festive, too big a bustling situation. I know that the right balance of those two things, that's pretty much my top ones. Baths are nice. Nature with a good book is nice. But for me, those two things are just the top priority.
Yeah. And I think that's really important you say that because everybody's got to find that thing for them or those things, those core things. And it's going to look different for everybody and it's going to look different in different seasons, but identifying what those core things are for you, bringing in the other things as there's room and there's time. It's always good to enjoy those things, but you've identified those core things and that's very necessary for both the work that you do on a day to day, but also your advocacy work. And to have that cup filled. I mean, you're president of PFLAG, and that is tricky right now. And so I think taking that time, so people, we're in a time where we are getting a lot of information thrown our way, and some things we're ready for and some things we're not. So being mindful, especially when you know you're in places and spaces that take an emotional toll on you, you've got to take time to regenerate. So I'm so glad that you have shared with us your things and you're able to really ground yourself in that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Confidently setting boundaries. In order for this to happen, you have a lot of things going on. You have a lot of opportunities out there and choices on how to give your time. And even in the things you love and you care about, there still has to be boundaries in time and space to make space for those things that fill your cup and nourish you that we've already talked about. So talk to me about confidently setting boundaries and what that looks like for you.
That has been the single biggest part of my journey. It's been so huge, something I've worked on my whole life. As
Yeah.
many of your listeners can probably relate to, I was taught in my formative years that I have zero sovereignty over my own life. If I were to try to set a boundary as a child, that would have actually been very dangerous for me. So
Yeah.
I became just a completely boundaryless child and young adult, just completely easy to steamroll in any direction. And most of my journey has been about learning that I'm worthy of self-care and deciding what I will and will not allow in my life. And like most of our core wounds, there's always a new layer I can clear with it, right? I'm a forever learner,
Mhm.
forever evolver. I'm a million times better today at setting and maintaining my boundaries. I have a pretty dramatic family story I could share about that, but it's
Yeah.
always still a work in progress for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get into that story in a minute. But I know what you mean when you grow up in spaces. I mean, if I challenged anything, and I think this is true for a lot of people in growing up in our generation, generations before, you were there to be obedient and not challenge an idea that your authority figures have presented to you. And if you do challenge it, you might be considered sassy or smart mouthed or talking back. It may get you sent to your room. It may get you grounded. I mean, and that's not taking into account anything beyond that. That was just how things were. You were to not challenge authority figures, period. And there could be a cost to that. So when you grow up like that, and then all of a sudden you're trying to find your voice and you're getting these nudges and you're told as a little girl to be quiet, be kind, and put everybody else first and prioritize their needs before you because doing otherwise is selfish. I mean, those are already pretty normal messages, normal in that a lot of people got them. That a lot of us got as little girls. So you've really got to have to like train yourself out of that. When you finally get to a point, all of us have gotten to a point that so many of us that I have on this conversation, I know you and I have talked about this, where we got to a breaking point. We're like, this is not serving me anymore. So I'm going to have to get clear on that, but it takes time and practice. So how long did it take you to feel comfortable transitioning into that space of boundary setting?
I think it's been incremental over many decades of personal growth work and spiritual work. I think that I grew up with a very low opinion of my value. And
Yeah.
as we commit to a spiritual practice, as we understand oneness and we understand our inherent value as beings here with a soul, a divinity that's inherent to each of us, it just naturally extends into your life. And you start to realize that we do have value here in this space. And just as much as I was trained to make sure I'm pleasing everyone else, even
Hmm.
that is a losing proposition when you think that you have to please everyone around you, because there are going to be
Yeah.
times when this person you've always pleased and this person you've always pleased are at odds in what they want of you, and that is like incapacitating for a people pleaser. And I think I was
Yeah.
coming up against enough of those situations that finally I just came into an awareness that I didn't even know what I would really want, right? That was just like
Hmm.
so foreign to me to even look at that, that
Yeah.
that I saw that there was something wrong with that equation, and I started getting better at talking to my soul, talking to my core essence, and finding out like what do I want in this, and am I allowed to claim it, to have it?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And we're going to get into that a little bit more later in the conversation when we talk about living out of our own expectations versus others. But before we do that, I want to talk about taking care of our emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, uh, is mental health. It's all connected. Talk to me about, so much of your work is built around that, but your story also led you to this place out of your own need. Um, so share a little bit more about that evolution of that impact, how you noticed it within yourself, and how you've moved into this space where you are today, for not only finding tools for yourself but finding tools for that you knew you could help other people with, in moving through all these things that are connected, that we haven't been until probably the last 5-10 years starting to talk about the connection points more. There's still, we haven't gotten there yet, but it's at least coming up in more and more conversations.
Yeah. I think that we teach what we need to learn. And for me, it was just once I cracked that world, once I read my first book about contemporary spirituality and I realized this was a whole area of study, I just became such a voracious learner around contemporary spiritual principles,
Mhm.
because I felt in my body how they were so resonant. The truth was so there. And it
Mhm.
was amazing to discover that there were people who lived this way and understood this. And just more than
Mhm.
anything else in the world, I wanted to be one of them. And just
Yeah.
applying the understanding that all of those emotions that I repressed and stuffed and stored away as a child, that
Mhm.
they create those pockets within us,
Mhm.
those trauma pockets, and learning the ways to release that, and seeing
Mm.
my whole entire experience of my life just completely change, made me passionate about bringing those same skills to other people. Because once the curtain has been pulled back, you just can't
Yeah.
go back to living the way most humans still do on the planet, like unaware of how it really works here, how energy works, how vibration works.
Yeah. And we live so disassociated from our bodies so much of the time. And we don't take the time to sit and be present and be mindful in the moment, to even give ourselves an opportunity to let that kind of show itself. And then we wonder, why do I have a headache? Why do I have a backache? Why is my stomach issue coming up continually, or worse? Or why am I feeling anxious? Why? Sit down, get present, and think about what's in there that needs to a voice, what's in there that needs acknowledgement, what's in there that needs to be released and heard. And so many times we see these things as our bodies be, oh, my body's falling apart, oh, my body is just failing me, blah blah blah. Your body's screaming at to for help, and giving you clues of areas that need to be addressed and heard and acknowledged. She's trying to help you. And you were able to find, space and place and tools to do that, and birth this work that you do today with the Joy School and all that that encompasses. Talk to me about, you are now, I really see you in this space of you really showing up unapologetically and supporting others in doing so as well. And you do this in multiple places. You do this through your Joy School work, but you also do it in your work as an advocate. And talk to me about, you know, that path to getting to the space of being unapologetic, because that is not how you felt as a child.
No. No, that's for sure true. And yeah, I mean, we've touched on it, but it really is about learning ways to release those stored away feelings that we just did not. They were too big when we have big
Yeah.
emotions when we're little. We don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the emotional maturity, so they get stored away instead of releasing them. I'd say that's 75% of what we do in my online groups is just process those emotions.
Mhm.
And yeah, I have a joy school, which means I teach people how to live joyfully. And you'd think that everybody would want to learn that. But one of the top reasons people don't try to learn joy is that deep down belief that they aren't really worthy of it, that they would have to apologize for
Mm.
themselves if they were taking time to try to be more joyful. And, you
Mm.
know, I know you work with women specifically. I have found that women in particular are conditioned to believe that their worth is totally determined by how much they do for others, give of themselves. So there's a lot of conditioning to unravel there. And, you know, learning true and deep abiding self love is a huge part of the Joy School curriculum. I always say, I wish you wanted that just for yourself. But if that's not enough and you need more
Mhm.
reasons, you will
Yeah.
be so much better for everyone else in your life once you are content
Yes.
and full from the inside, right? We've all heard you can't give from an empty
Absolutely.
cup. And some women really need to understand that they'll be better partners, better mothers, better friends once they stop looking to other people for their happiness, right? Your partner doesn't need the
Mhm.
burden of keeping you happy. Your kids don't
No.
need the burden of worrying about what you're going through. Taking good care of you is the
Mhm.
very best gift you can give to everyone around you. And sometimes that perspective is necessary to make people not feel like they have to be apologetic for wanting joy.
Yes. Yeah, the apologetic piece. I mean, women are the apologizing champions of the world. And that is not a badge of honor we should be aspiring to. And I love how you like you flip the script on that. We need to flip that script of giving of ourselves to our detriment, where we're abandoning ourselves and our wellness, is not a gift to anyone. It's not a gift to ourselves, and we are worthy of more than that. And it's not a gift to the people that we are involved with and engaged with. And if you are engaged and involved with people that require that of you, then I strongly encourage you to take a look at those relationships and determine if they are healthy for you and if they require a different set of boundaries to protect your well being and your wellness. And that will require communication and maybe some hard decisions, but it's really imperative that we as women start really embracing and understanding the importance of our value and putting our well being first so we can actually show up the way we want to, refreshed, rejuvenated, not feeling like a martyr, not feeling taxed out, not feeling exhausted. Another thing we do, we wear, multitasking and look at all I can do like a badge of honor, because that, unfortunately, in our culture has been affirmed and rewarded, when rather it should be like, okay, where am I giving of myself that it's costing me? And how can I adjust that so that I can be healthy and well for myself and for everyone else? And so really shifting that narrative. And that's why we keep having these conversations. And my Pollyannish hope is that someday we will actually all get it and be able to live by it. But that starts with kids. That starts as parents, and how you talk to your kids, and the availability they have to feel free to ask questions and feel their emotions and be given tools to walk through them and feel them, and not and when they're tired and when they're stressed, and not being told to sacrifice themselves to be affirmed, to be awarded, to be seen as good. It really starts there, but also knowing that if you didn't get that, or that's not something you have started doing yet, you can start doing it now, wherever you are, and so it's never too late to start it. In terms of the and giving these tools like you do, this is a form of you living unapologetically. This showing up with this toolkit, but you also show up unapologetically in your advocacy work. Talk to me about your role as president of PFLAG, and how that became an important part of this unapologetic piece for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I have a beautiful transgender daughter. She's 27 now. I didn't know a whole lot about transgender people prior to her coming out 5 years ago. And, I've always had gay friends. She grew up in a very open, very, very open liberal household. And I thought that I was a supporter of LGBTQ without ever really understanding what the T was. So
Yeah.
when my child came out, I learned everything there is to learn, which is not hard to come by. You would think it is by the level of, I'm just going to call it ignorance that still exists. It's not hard to come by the facts. What every single medical organization, psychological organization across the entire world is completely in agreement, understands what gender truly is now. It's not about what's in your pants. It's about chromosomes and hormones and a lot of things that we know and can measure now. But once I learned all of this, I think that to tie it into my own journey, the way I think you're asking me to do,
Hmm.
I think I did grow up with a lot of bullying, with a lot of feeling powerless in the face
Hmm.
of haters. I think that
Yeah.
was something that was very, very real for me. And so realizing that my daughter belonged to this group of marginalized people, activated a lot of
Mm.
that in me. I have a
Oh,
strong mama bear
yeah.
instinct, as we talked about. So yes, it was primarily about protecting her and others like her, but it also was coming from a very real raw place where I was still
Mm.
continuing to do healing. So yes, my advocacy work for the transgender community, particularly in this past year, has just been bottomless. There's just so much damage that's been done. There's so much. It's it's legislation, yes, but it goes beyond that. It's the green light to bigotry and hatred coming from the
Yeah.
top. It's
Yeah.
the social the wounds that run so deep in the hearts of transgender people who just want to live their lives, who just want to have the same
Yeah.
rights, the prescribed care that everybody else gets, to have people
Yeah.
saying, well, I don't believe in that. It's like saying, I don't believe in autism. And we need to outlaw all the prescribed treatment for autism because it
Yeah.
makes me uncomfortable to think about people out there with autism. It's exactly identical to that. And,
Yeah.
raising awareness around that has become a really big part of my life because, progress marches forward. We're going to correct all of this
Yeah.
insanity, but it's going to cause so much devastation and heartbreak along the way until we're able to correct it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up, thank you for bringing up your connection to this and in seeing the wounds in you that need to be healed, but also a way to move forward and learn from that and make a difference for somebody else in that position that might be getting bullied or worse. Tell people what PFLAG means because I don't know if everybody knows that.
It's the country's oldest and largest LGBTQ support organization. Um, right at this point, we say the acronym just stands for Pride Flag. It used to stand for
Yeah.
something else when it started, but it's all over the country. It's lots of leaders get together. There's, they're involved in legislation and attempts to correct faulty, very, very ignorant
Yeah.
and hateful legislation. And I have groups. I run groups of uh, people with transgender people in their family that want some support and resources and understanding. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm around the heartbreak and devastation a lot.
Mm. Which goes back to the importance of you really having healthy boundaries and that self-care in what you do because you're also in your own work with the Joy School are helping people move from a place that can be really rough and navigating and healing to there's a lot of emotional labor going on here. And so thank you for that, but also your awareness and taking care of yourself within it so you can continue to show up for it unapologetically and help others to do so. You brought up such an interesting point where there is information out there and people just choose not to access it. They choose to stay in their ignorance, their biases. And I think it's so interesting because I'm constantly asking myself, why do these people care so much about how these people want to live their lives? Why we have so many bigger fish to fry that are actual problems in the world. And I come from a very faith based background historically. I left the organized church 5 years ago because I just couldn't take any more of this, exactly what we're talking about today. It's like, this is not loving. This is not kind. God very clearly talks about free agency. So why in the world are you trying to play God and are so worried about other people's agency? I mean, that's just where my head goes because I don't understand it. And so I'm imploring people today, if you're listening, educate yourself. We're going to have links in our show notes and on our resources page that I'm going to ask Lisa to share with us that's going to take you to the accurate, true information about this group of people that just want to live their lives authentically, safely, wholly. They're not trying to bother you or anybody else. They just want to live their lives just like you want to live your life. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I wanted to take time to say that because it's such the forefront right now. And this can be an opportunity for us to be better, to learn better, to push back, to think about when we see policies and legislation and how we vote and who's actually informing themselves and who is carrying on this trope and this stigma that has nothing to do with actual truth. And so thank you for your time. We're going to have resources for that. I appreciate you speaking to that. And I think this goes nicely into the importance of setting and coming back to your why and your values and everything you do. This work you do in your life, how you show up for your people is really succinctly aligned with your why and your values. Talk to me about, given how you grew up, how you got to that space of being able to identify your own why and your own values, because you spend a lot of time and energy trying to be safe and keep everybody else around you happy. And you mentioned this earlier, that makes it very difficult for you to even know what it is you care about because you're so busy managing what everybody else cares about to try to just keep life as stable as possible. So talk to me about your arrival and understanding of your why and your values.
Yeah, I love that one. You and I are working from the same playbook, sister. That's absolutely what we do in Joy School as well. We periodically go into conversation with our vertical self. That's what we call it in Joy School. We get really skillful at communicating with our soul. And from there, we can track the thought that led to the action, the feeling that led to the thought, where that feeling came from. And when we get that that clarity about what's truly motivating us, that's when we can step in and move the pieces around, take control of the process a little bit, right? So what we do a lot in Joy School is try to differentiate between our conditioned desires and our soul desires. Our conditioned desires are the ones we learned from our parents, the society we grew up in. Almost everybody today has a conditioned desire for more money, for example, more status in our community, whatever that looks like. And very often those things are not what our soul truly wants. And it's only by doing that work to discern our true soul passion, soul desires, that we can figure out what to pursue that's going to actually bring us happiness. And certainly for me, being someone who never had a voice, didn't even try to have a voice. I mean, quite literally, and when I was young, the teachers thought that I was mute because I wouldn't ever speak in school. They couldn't get me to speak. Even when I would take a test, I would write so faintly because I was so afraid of self-expression that they would have to look it up, hold up the light to see if I even took the test. So I've had a long history of feeling like I have no voice, no boundaries, no clarity around what I deserve. And that I think is what helps to propel being a voice for others who are being rendered, quite powerless right now and trying to be silenced and trying to be denied.
Yeah.
So it probably does all come together, both in my Joy School work and in my PFLAG work, that it's a very strong value in me to be a voice of love, a voice of compassion, a voice of justice in the world.
Wow. Thank you for that explanation and that ability, because I think so many times we treat our thoughts and the narratives in our head as truth rather than getting curious and asking that why. Wait a minute, where is that coming from? Is that really from me? Is that actually what I desire, what I want, what feels authentic to me? Or is that a voice or narrative that I need to unpack that actually isn't true? Or isn't true anymore because seasons change. And you talked about being a learner. As we learn, as we grow, these things will adjust and change. Identify what's true, identify what's actually coming from you and for you. And sometimes we have to adjust our values and expectations within that. I know that's been a journey I've been on where, and then making sure how you're engaged in the world aligns with that. But I think that coming back to that why and unpacking those narratives, because again, we treat these truth, we have a thought and we just treat it as truth. And we don't get curious about, and I'm as guilty as anybody. That's like I said earlier, we do the work because we needed it first and need it continually. But getting curious and rather than just punching forward with it, moving forward with it, and removing the judgment. And because I think what the other thing we go through is when we start unpacking these things and realizing the things we were doing to please others versus the things that actually align with us, we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that for so long or whatever. No. Go back to the scene you were in, the environment you were in, the space you were in that called that out in you. If what you were trying to do to survive, who you were inhabited with. So many times we're dealing with people and spaces that don't have the emotional bandwidth, intelligence, or education to even process and move through their own thoughts and emotions, let alone handle anybody else's. And so this can breed a real area of lack of emotional safety and ability to actually speak up and be who you are. So take a look at that space and time you're in and be like, oh, I get why I made that decision. And I have found, and I've had to do this in my own journey, I had to remove the judgment and get curious. And when you remove the judgment and get curious, it on yourself, it also opens up your ability to do that with other people. So you're not, it's just better understanding other people within that. And that, which really goes nicely into you now really live clearly from these values. You live out of your own expectations versus others. Talk to me about that process and that evolution and communicating that to other people as you've grown into this space of being who you are.
Yeah. Well, having spent such a chunk of my life as just an absolutely pathetic people pleaser, I know how exhausting it is. It's unhealthy physically, right? And you end up paralyzed because you can't
Yeah.
please everyone. So the more skilled we become at actually accepting and loving ourselves, all the parts of ourselves, all the layers,
Hmm.
that's when our soul desires have a chance to surface. And that's where the purpose work reveals itself and the advocacy, if that's what we're called to. But I really do think that each of us has some sort of unique gift that we are here to add into the elevation of the collective, right? So for some
Yeah.
people that might be they're funny and they make people laugh, and for somebody else it might be they knit sweaters for people. I don't know, but when we have that clarity around what's my
Hmm.
gift to others, and it might be
Yeah.
just smiling people at the grocery store and helping the lady get the pickle jar off the top shelf. When we can maybe even we get to a point in Joy School in some of our programs that we set an intention every day. Okay, what am I going to do today to add to the
Hmm.
upliftment of the collective? And that's going to look different for everybody. But when you find that, when you key into that, then it's almost like you take that people pleaser tendency and shift it into something healthy, because we are
Hmm.
here to help one another. We are here to be
Yeah.
pleasing to the world at large, but it has to come from our overflow, like we talked about, and it
Yeah.
has to be in alignment with our own unique gifts for it
Hmm.
to feel purely positive. And in those cases, we feel our vibration elevating. We work a lot with the David Hawkins scale of emotions in Joy School. And when we're in the higher elevation frequencies of love and compassion and peace and joy, we are highly effective in the world. We're sending out super coherent
Yeah.
signals that are creating some massive things, right? We can be incredible manifestors and creatives when we're in that higher vibration frequency, as opposed to allowing ourselves to dip down into the lower vibrations that a lot of the world is creating in people right now.
Yeah, I love that energy piece. We underestimate the power of that. We really do. And I love how you do this because there's a lot of toxic positivity out there, and toxic positivity really moves around just feeling, just talking about the positives and pushing away the negatives. And if we push away the negatives and we don't heal those hurt areas, we cannot it will keep our energy down. There'll be a part of us that won't be able to function at full capacity because we haven't given that space to breathe and be moved through. And when we do that healing and that work and quit stuffing and ignoring, and this can build up over time. You don't have to have a background of trauma or abuse for this to store up. If you've simply been brought up in an environment where you've been told that anger and negative emotions, I don't use negative or positive on emotions. Emotions are clues that something needs to be dealt with or addressed, whether it's an easy thing to do or a hard thing. There are hard emotions and not so hard emotions. And I think it's so important. And that's what I love about your work is you address the whole package so that people can reach a space of authentic joy and communicate from there. And it's like my expectations for my life is that I will operate out of this place of authentic joy. And that is not void of doing what's necessary for me to live there authentically. And as things come up that are hard, that I will deal with them and address them. I won't stuff them and only write down what I'm grateful for every day and ignore the things that are hard. I will give room and space for all of it so I can authentically feel contentment and joy. And you address the whole package, which is so important. This enables you to know what your values are, to live out of those expectations, to set those healthy boundaries around that accordingly, and show up in the world the way you were meant to, the gifts that you were given, that the world misses out on if you're not there tapping into them and sharing them. I've said a lot here because I feel so passionately about this whole package piece, but you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just that, you and I are in complete alignment on these points. We don't, in Joy School, we don't define joy as happiness. Joy is a freedom feeling, the freedom to completely feel and hold the full extent of every emotion that human beings are here to experience. And when we stop judging our emotions and denying them and trying to manipulate them and defend them, every emotion has joy in it. Anger can be a beautifully joyful defining of boundaries and a rightness of just like where you want to take a stand in the world and be a stand for others in the world. Anger can be extremely joyful. Grief can have joy in it when we understand that grief is nothing but love, right? Grief is just
Yeah.
the capacity to love in a very huge and all-encompassing way. So it really is about unpacking those layers that I know you talk about too. We do a lot of shadow work in Joy School. Most of us got through life by showing the world layers A and B and maybe sometimes C for special people. But
Yeah.
we are complex, multi-layered creatures, and keeping layers D and E and F hidden and denied, often even from ourselves, is extraordinarily damaging. It's what lowers our vibration, drags down our joy. So yeah, joy is the freedom to absolutely be and accept and adore every last speck of who we are.
Mm.
And when you pull that off, then anything in life can have an undercurrent of joy, no matter what crazy BS is going on out there.
Yeah, which is so necessary right now. We need that so badly. You've really already explained this, but this is layers 101. And it's the next talking point is accepting the layered aspects of ourselves. You really help people do that. Talk to me about your layers journey because we've talked about it already. It was bumpy for a long time, and you had to get to a point where we don't have to love all of our layers, but we do have to acknowledge them. And we do have to, I believe, remove the shame and the secrecy and the fear from them and give them their space. And again, going back to that curious piece, okay, don't love that decision, but given where I was at the time, I see how I got there. This is what I've learned. And now I'm here and I've moved forward. But I'm not going to shame or be embarrassed or stuff that in a way that's hurting me anymore.
Yeah. Shame is the number one, so ubiquitous drag on our energy. Most of us have some shame that we're aware of consciously, and most of us have a boatload of shame that we do not even consciously acknowledge. When
Mm,
we are very young in our impressionable years, when we're forming our definitions about the world and our place in it and ourselves, we think everything is our fault. This is like a known psychological bit, right? If
mhm.
mom's having a bad day, we think it's our fault. If somebody is, everything we think is ours, and we hold that as shame. And it
Yeah.
takes doing some work and pulling that up into the light of awareness to that's when we can use our conscious minds to actually rewire what's going on in the unconscious, when we can show ourselves so clearly that, oh wow, all that shame really wasn't warranted, it wasn't about anything real, it was my very immature interpretation of events. When we can divest ourselves of that shame, everything changes. Our relationships change. Our relationship with ourselves, of course, dramatically changes. So it really just is about like putting in the work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you have to get to at some point. I think so many times I remember when I really started doing the work, well, it's been, gosh, almost 5 years ago now. I had to abandon the idea that I'm going to go do this for 6 months. I'm going to get some great tools and I'm going to be good. And I'm going to move on with my life. That's not how this works. It's a continual journey. You have tools to help you stay on track. I mean, that's what I call this framework that we talk through. Here's your framework, but you got to do the work within that. No one can do that for you. And also, I promise you, it's worth it. It's worth it to find yourself, to heal yourself, to be the truest form, the healthiest form of yourself. You're worth it. You're valuable. The world needs this from you, and wants this from you. And it is just, but it's that acceptance that this is not a 3 steps and do that and you're done piece. This is not a drive-through, fast food drive-through. I mean, it's just, so I think but I think what I would love to see is so many times we get to these places where we hit these walls before we're willing to go down the road and really take this seriously. I would love to see a world where we're learning about these things as we're children growing up. And then we go out in the world and we have this framework in place that will keep us in alignment. So when the bumpy times come, we can go back and refer to it and have and use those tools so we never hit the wall. Um, that is my dream for the world, for people. um, but while we're getting there, just knowing that importance of embracing your layers and embracing all the parts that make you who you are. You don't have to love them, but you got to give room for them and space for them to breathe and be acknowledged, without shame, but with curiosity and an understanding of your story and your journey and what inspired these things, and that it's possible that you can do it. I think sometimes we get to a point where we feel like, "Ugh, such this is such a mess. It's so broken. I can't. You can, and you should, and you're worth it." And I don't like using should, but I really do think this is something everyone should do in a way that feels in alignment with them and authentic to them and safe for them. So thank you for all of that. Um, this really goes nicely into living out feel, finding empowerment, embracing layers. This is what you're doing. You talked about earlier that, and I think it's so important we come back to this, that our happiness is not someone else's responsibility and someone else's happiness is not our responsibility. It's our responsibility, each of us, to do our own work. And people may respond in ways that are sometimes great, sometimes not. But as long as we're being authentic to ourselves, kind in our communication, but firm, you can be kind and firm at the same time. It's not each other's responsibility to change each other. That also takes a lot of pressure off of your relationships when you're not asking something of the relationship that it was never meant to be in the first place. So talk to me about how doing this work, moving from this place of being this, really adamant people pleaser to survive into the space you are right now, has impacted your relationship with yourself as well as your relationship with other people.
Yeah, it's really one and the same thing, right? I mean, in all of our relationships, I
Yeah.
always say if you jump down in the hole with the problem, there's nobody up top to lower the rope. So you absolutely have to maintain your own full cup, your own high vibration in order to
Hmm.
be you can sometimes best help someone by being that model for them seeing you
Yeah.
having your boundaries and being kind and compassionate with them while holding your boundaries. Sometimes that's the very best thing you can do to help anyone. What I have found and what I wholeheartedly believe is that healthy, rewarding relationships are not possible until we've done the work to 1,000% fully accept every bit of us.
Yeah.
Because when we're wearing that mask, which is so common, that mask that we know people like for us to wear, and then someone tries to love us, the love can never really land because deep down we know they're
Yeah.
just offering love to the mask. We have this story running that if they knew who was really under the mask, the love wouldn't be offered. So it really keeps us in a position where love and intimacy and even the joy of real friendship is not even possible for us because we put
Yeah.
this layer between us and whoever's trying to be in relationship with us.
Yeah, absolutely. That was said so well. Thank you so much for that. I think that's just such an important piece of this whole puzzle. And when you show up healthy, that's an invitation. And you said that. And then I want to reemphasize that people want to know what you have. Like, what is she doing? Because your energy that you bring into a room, people can feel that. People notice that. It is tangible. And they're like, I want what she had. And so it really does act as an invitation and to invite people into this, because I firmly believe that we as women doing this together, doing it in community, inviting others to come along with us, finding our joy, our calling, our contentment, knowing our values, voicing our boundaries and expectations, and showing up as our healthiest, full cup, cared for version of ourselves. Our wins are my win is your win. Your win is my win. This makes more room for all of us, not seeing each other as competition and pushing each other aside and down. That only keeps systems the same way as they've always been. If we're going to change systems and trade it in for safety for all of us, in all the spaces we show up in, it's going to require us to show up as a collective, doing this together. And that requires us doing this really soul searching, value based work, so that because when we know our worth and our value, we're no longer intimidated or afraid or in competition with other people. We just want other people to come along the ride I'm having a problem getting my words out here. Come along on the ride with us, because we know what's possible within that. And so that's such an important piece of this whole thing, and your work feeds so nicely into. All right, we are getting down to the rapid fire, and then I'm going to give you a chance to share about where people can find you, follow you, all of your resources. Name 5 activities that nourish you.
Being in nature, I'm sure that's a popular one. Reading, teaching. I'm going to go back to being in silence and being with loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And 5 words on how you want to feel the next 6 months.
Hmm. These probably would not be my typical 5 words, but given the year that we're living through, what is so important to me right now is that I be effective,
Mm.
powerful, clear,
Mm-hmm.
love focused,
Mm-hmm.
and a change maker.
Mm. Oh, that's really powerful. Um, this is on a little different note, and it doesn't go with our script, but it came to mind. What would you say to a parent who is learning that their child is identifying as transgender? What is it? Because that's where our kids are born. That's not the first thing on the list that we're expecting to hear, because of just the way we have been trained in culture and society to think and believe about people's roles, genders, identities, all those things. So talk to me, what would you say?
Yeah, I worked with so many parents, and many of them look back in hindsight and wish they had done it a little bit differently. So it's
Yeah.
not just my advice. This is advice of many, many parents that I am in community with who wish they had done this. But it would be understand from the very first moment, this is not about you. This is about your child. No matter what your child would come to
Mm.
you with, you need to be sure that you are a support of love, unconditional love and acceptance for your child. So I think very often parents are so uncomfortable with it that they want to doubt it. They want to, like, oh, I'm sure you're mistaken. That's not really a thing. Who have you been hanging out with? There are like so many go-tos that parents later understand it was so damaging. I mean, I
Mhm.
can show parents the statistics when it comes to good outcomes for
Mhm.
transgender individuals. And it's important to understand that being transgender, there's nothing absolutely wrong with that whatsoever. It's just a way that a small percentage of human beings come into the world,
Yeah.
chromosomally and biologically and hormonally. There's no disorder around being transgender. What most children end up suffering from is called gender dysphoria, which is the extreme discomfort of having expectations that they be someone they're not in the world. And gender dysphoria only gets worse and
Mm.
worse over time. So that's why once you know that your child is transgender, the very, very, very first line of care is encourage your child to live as their true gender. Their true gender is
Mm.
not determined by what's in their underwear. Their true gender is determined by a whole host of other things. And
Yeah.
it's being forced to live opposite of that that causes all of the gender dysphoria. When gender dysphoria gets bad, that's when we have the suicide rates are astronomical for transgender youth,
Yeah.
depression rates, addiction. That's all in response to numbing the pain of being forced to be something that you're not. So
Mm.
the very best thing that any parent can do is listen, understand, say, I support you. My top goal is that you have a happy, good life. So let's go to the experts. Gender affirming care is never done without a team, without mental health experts there, without physical doctors there. Let's go to the experts. Let's figure out. And normally, for a child that's still considered a child, not an adult yet,
Mhm.
that's just going to be about social transitioning. That's what it usually is. All of this talk
Mhm.
about mutilation and castration, and it's all complete wrong. It's not reality. What the prescribed thing to do would be allow your child to live as the gender that they are. Let them pick a name. Let them tell you what their pronouns are. And unfortunately, the schools are no longer even required to
Yeah.
apply right now. Hopefully, by the time this airs, we've taken care of that. But that's what will allow your transgender child to thrive and have as good a shot at a normal flourishing life as any cisgender child. So
Yeah.
the number one determinant is family acceptance when it comes
Mm.
to suicide rates, how well a transgender person exists in the world. It's 100% way further up than any of the secondary determinants. It's family acceptance. The kids who have full support from their close knit loved ones, no matter how nasty it gets out there in the world, they do well. They do okay because they have their support team. They feel loved. They feel seen. They're attuned to. They're validated. That's what you need to do for your child.
Thank you so much for that. And again, listeners, there's going to be resources on our resources page for more links how you can get information. I appreciate your authenticity and vulnerability in sharing that in a time that's feels shaky and scary for this community and for their loved ones and their parents. So thank you for how you show up in the world with this. And I think it's just a really good reminder to people ignorance is not an excuse. There are resources. Go learn, go find out and educate yourself so you can have the right, correct, accurate, fact informed and based information. And don't just believe anything that's out there. And if this goes against what you've always thought or believed, get curious about that. Challenge that notion, educate yourself so you at least have the correct information coming out of it. That's going to enable you to show up compassionately. It's going to enable you to show up as seeing people and humans as humans, and not statistics and numbers and in stigmas and stereotypes. And so I really wanted to address that today. Thank you so much for sharing on that. And really, that is your challenge this week, listeners, is get curious about yourselves and what it's going to take to get to that inner joy and contentment. Lisa's got all kinds of resources for you on that. And just even using our framework that we use here on the Embracing Layers radio show. Start talking to yourself and asking yourself, do I prioritize my self-care? Do I set healthy boundaries? Do I address all the parts of my emotional, mental, physical health? Do I feel like I'm showing up unapologetically? And do I support others in doing so? Do I know what my why and values are? Do I know how to voice those expectations of my life, or am I living out of somebody else's? Do I know how to accept all the beautiful layers, or am I asking relationships to satisfy my life in ways that they weren't meant to be? All these things and these frameworks are available to you, but get curious rather than judgmental this week is really my big challenge to you in these areas. Lisa, tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you, if they're interested in the Joy School, how they can follow you, if they're interested in PFLAG and local organizations in their areas that might be available. Let people know about all that. And again, all this will be on our resources page at embracinglayers.com.
Melissa, first, thank you so much for being an educator in this space. It is so, so badly needed. And I appreciate that, we didn't get together to talk about that, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to raise awareness there as well. So yay, you. Thank you, girl.
Absolutely.
Almost everything I do is at my website, which is my name, Lisa McCourt, LISAMCCOURT.com. My latest book I wrote is there. It's Free Your Joy. My groups are there. My small online groups. I lead small online groups through applying spiritual principles for joyful living. And the best way to contact me for PFLAG is probably just to write to me in the contact link there. And
okay.
I'm a regional PFLAG leader, but I do speak with anybody anywhere in the country or world who wants a preliminary conversation where I help them to find their local resources and, just offer whatever emotional support I can offer. So all those things are at lisamccourt.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your time today. Thank you for how you show up in the world, for the ways that you authentically share your work, for how your personal journey has inspired you to really get in touch with yourself and allow you to show up in this way. That journey takes courage. It's real easy for us to stay comfortable and just keep doing what we've always done because we don't know what's on the other side of that change. But I comfort and curiosity are not synonymous with each other. Comfort and complacency can be very synonymous, and you didn't allow yourself to become complacent. And that's my challenge to everybody this week. As I said, and this goes with what I said before Lisa shared her resources with us, are you complacent? Are you comfortable? Or is it time to get curious? And when you feel the urge to judge something, replace it with curiosity. Just go to the resources and start asking questions for your own health and well-being and for the health and well-being of others, your neighbor. You never know what people are going through. So that's my challenge to you this week. Take good care. Lisa, thank you so much again for your time today. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you, sweet sister. Wonderful to be with you.
Absolutely. You too. All right. Take good care, audience. Be curious this week and have a great week. Hello, Melissa Crook here. Thank you so much for joining us on the Field podcast today, Finding Empowerment, Embracing Layers. I hope you found today's framework and resources supportive and informative. To learn more about all that we offer here at the Embracing Layers Network, visit embracinglayers.com. You can go to our contact form to schedule me as a speaker for your next conference, workshop, or seminar. You can go to our book page to order our book that Jessica Garrison, our wonderful and talented writer and author, authored with my support. And engage with this framework in written form with your journal or in a book club with other women, inviting them on this journey with you. You can look at our resources page for all of the helpful and insightful resources our guests offer and share. You can find the schedule for our weekly Together We Feel women's panel conversations that we're holding each Monday on our YouTube channel. And you can find the links to all the spaces and places you can follow, engage with us on social media, and join our engagements that are happening on our Substack site. There is also a donation page where you can donate to support our work to ensure we can continue to bring you these incredible guests, conversations, and support. Thanks again for joining me this week. Share with your friends and give us a review on your favorite listening platform. Your feedback helps us ensure we're bringing you the content that will best support you in having an empowered, embracing layers journey. Take good care, and thanks for giving us some of your valuable time today. We truly appreciate you so deeply.